The early 20th century saw Palestine under British control. Tensions simmered between the Jewish and Arab populations. Jewish people, facing persecution elsewhere, sought a homeland in their ancestral land. Arab Palestinians, the existing inhabitants, resisted this claim. The Zionist movement gained momentum, advocating for a Jewish state. This led to increased Jewish migration to Palestine. Friction intensified as both groups felt entitled to the land. Violent clashes erupted, forcing the British to withdraw in 1948, leaving a region on the brink of explosion. 1948 marked a pivotal year. Israel declared its independence, fulfilling the Zionist dream. However, this dream came at a steep price. Neighboring Arab states, rejecting Israel's legitimacy, declared war. The war resulted in a decisive Israeli victory. Israel expanded its territory beyond the UN partition plan. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians fled or were expelled from their homes, becoming refugees. This displacement, known as the Nakba or catastrophe in Arabic, remains a deeply painful memory. It continues to fuel Palestinian resentment and demands for a right of return. In 1967, the Six-Day War erupted. Israel again emerged victorious, capturing the West Bank, East Jerusalem, Gaza, the Sinai Peninsula, and the Golan Heights. This victory had far-reaching consequences. Israel's control expanded significantly. The Palestinian refugee crisis worsened. Israel began establishing settlements in the occupied territories, a move deemed illegal by the international community. This further inflamed tensions and created obstacles to a two-state solution. The 1967 war solidified Israel's military dominance, but deepened the Palestinian struggle for self-determination. The Gaza Strip, a densely populated coastal enclave, has become a focal point of the conflict. This small piece of land, measuring just 365 square kilometers, is home to a population density among the highest in the world. Home to over 2 million Palestinians, Gaza faces severe challenges. The daily lives of its residents are marked by hardship and uncertainty, as they navigate through a landscape of limited opportunities and constant tension. Israel maintains a blockade, citing security concerns due to Hamas's control. This blockade, which includes both land and sea restrictions, has been in place since 2007, severely impacting the region's economy and the well-being of its people. Critics argue the blockade constitutes collective punishment. They point to the widespread suffering it causes, affecting not just militants but the entire civilian population, including children and the elderly. Gaza endures recurring cycles of violence and destruction. Each conflict leaves behind a trail of devastation, with homes, schools, and hospitals often caught in the crossfire. The blockade restricts movement of people and goods, crippling the economy. Essential supplies, from food to medical equipment, are often in short supply, exacerbating the humanitarian crisis. The humanitarian situation is dire, with limited access to essential resources. Healthcare, clean water and electricity are all in short supply, making daily life a struggle for survival. Gaza's plight highlights the human cost of the conflict and the urgency of finding a solution. The international community continues to call for peace and a resolution that addresses the needs and rights of all parties involved. Section 5. Hamas, militant rule and a cycle of violence. Hamas, considered a terrorist organization by Israel, the United States and others, governs Gaza. This governance has led to a complex and often violent situation in the region. It rose to power in the 2007 elections, a pivotal moment that shifted the political landscape of Gaza. The victory was celebrated by many, but it also marked the beginning of increased tensions. Hamas's control complicates the conflict, creating a challenging environment for peace efforts. Their governance includes strict checkpoints and a strong military presence. Israel holds it responsible for attacks and launches military operations in response. These operations are often intense and lead to significant damage. These operations often result in civilian casualties and destruction, leaving many families devastated and homeless. the humanitarian impact is severe. Hamas's ideology, which includes calls for Israel's destruction, fuels the cycle of violence. Their propaganda and rallies often emphasize this stance, further inflaming tensions. Its rocket attacks on Israeli civilians are condemned internationally. These attacks cause fear and damage, leading to a cycle of retaliation. Hamas's rivalry with Fatah, the ruling party in the West Bank, further divides Palestinians. This internal conflict weakens the Palestinian position and complicates efforts for a unified front. Section 6. The Oslo Accords. A glimmer of hope, extinguished. The Oslo Accords, signed in the 1990s, offered a glimmer of hope. They aimed to establish a framework for Palestinian self-governance in the West Bank and Gaza. The goal was a two-state solution. However, the accords ultimately failed. The continued expansion of Israeli settlements, the outbreak of the Second Intifada, and a lack of trust undermined the process. The failure of Oslo underscored the deep-seated mistrust and the difficulty of reaching a peaceful resolution. Section 7, 2023, A Brutal Escalation, A World on Edge. October 2023 witnessed a horrifying escalation. Hamas launched a surprise attack, firing thousands of rockets into Israel and infiltrating border towns. The scale and intensity were unprecedented, causing significant casualties and taking hostages. Israel responded with airstrikes on Gaza, targeting Hamas infrastructure. These strikes, while aimed at weakening Hamas, also resulted in civilian casualties and widespread destruction. The international community condemned the violence and called for a ceasefire. Section 8. The international stage a chorus of condemnation, a lack of solutions. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has long troubled the international community, becoming a focal point of global diplomacy and international relations. The United States, often playing mediator, faces criticism for its perceived bias towards Israel, complicating its role in peace negotiations. Global powers are divided, with some supporting Israel's right to defend itself against attacks, while others condemn its occupation and settlement activities in Palestinian territories. The United Nations, despite numerous resolutions and debates, struggles to enforce meaningful action or bring about a lasting resolution to the conflict. The conflict highlights the complexities of international relations, the limitations of global governance, and the challenges of achieving consensus among diverse nations. Finding a path to peace requires bridging deep divisions, addressing the legitimate grievances of both sides, and fostering mutual understanding and respect. The human cost of the conflict is immense, with countless lives affected and generations growing up in an environment of fear and uncertainty. Despite the challenges, there are glimmers of hope as grassroots movements and peace activists continue to work tirelessly towards reconciliation and a just resolution.